The floor is yours. Here is the complete script, research verified and TTS ready. The building is still moving. Not dramatically, not in a way you can see with your naked eye, but the instruments drilled into its walls at 301 Mission Street in San Francisco have been logging the data every day for nearly a decade. A 5-foot tower of blue-gray glass, the tallest concrete residential structure in the city, is leaning 29 inches to the northwest. The lean is slow, the numbers creep, and every millimeter of new tilt transfers stress to pipes, windows, basement walls, and the soft bay mud that was never meant to hold this weight. The creaking residents heard in September 2018 was not their imagination, and the fix that cost $120 million was not quite the solution they were promised. Welcome to the full inventory of what has gone wrong at Millennium Tower, and nothing about it is subtle. The building has sunk more than 18 inches into reclaimed landfill since it opened in April 2009. By 2022, the lean at the roof had reached 28 inches before the retrofit crews arrived. Stress fractures streaked the basement walls in diagonal lines, allowing groundwater seepage into the concrete foundation. The plumbing lines, designed for a perfectly vertical building, are now misaligned by the tilt, generating raw sewage backflows that have flooded at least one unit on the third floor with what tests confirmed was black water contaminated with black mold. In 2018, the windows began spontaneously buckling under torqued frames. In March 2023, one window panel fell off the building entirely during high winds. Owners can now face a $10,000 fine simply for leaving a window open at the wrong moment. The building's developer, Millennium Partners of New York, generated $750 million in total sales from 419 condominiums by 2013, a 25% return on an estimated $600 million in development costs. Welcome to Millennium Tower at 301 Mission Street, south of Market, San Francisco. The tower opened to residents on the 23rd of April, 2009. It stands 645 feet across 58 floors. Designed by Handel Architects of New York, engineered by DeSimone Consulting Engineers, and built by general contractor Webcore Builders for a reported $350 million. The developer, Mission Street Development LLC, an affiliate of Millennium Partners, he had proposed the project in 2002 and received city approval in 2003. Despite a single dissenting vote from Planning Commissioner Sue Lee, sales opened to extraordinary demand. Within the first 5 weeks, the building moved $100 million worth of condominiums at prices ranging from $1.6 million to $10 million per unit. The tower marketed itself as the West Coast's answer to Manhattan luxury, with a lap pool, a private cinema, a health club and spa, and a restaurant run by celebrity chef Michael Mina on the ground floor. It was, briefly, the tallest residential building west of the Mississippi River. Then 2016 arrived, and the word sinking entered every conversation about the building. 3 forces made this failure not only possible, but almost predictable. The first was money. The post-dot-com real estate cycle had turned San Francisco's south of Market into the most valuable underdeveloped land on the West Coast, and speed mattered more than caution. Anchoring the building to bedrock 200 feet below the surface would have cost approximately $4 million more than the friction pile system actually used, according to deposition testimony in the subsequent litigation. In a $350 million project, that rounding error was judged unnecessary. The second force was regulatory capture by speed. Millennium Partners declined to submit to an independent peer review of the foundation design because, as documented in the litigation record, that review would have delayed construction by years. A comparable project at 80 Natoma Street, by developer Jack Myers, was halted precisely because a peer review flagged its similar concrete foundation as inadequate. Millennium Partners received no such check. The third force was the land itself. The site sits on infill soil, reclaimed bay mud layered over dense Colma sand, the geological remnant of the last ice age, with solid bedrock another 200 feet below that. San Francisco had built on this substrate before. It had also watched buildings sink into it before. The Millennium Tower was the logical product of a system that rewarded moving fast and billing the consequences later. Here is the core engineering problem, explained simply. Tall buildings in soft soil behave like objects resting on a thick sponge. When you press down, the sponge compresses unevenly over time. The standard solution in San Francisco for a building of this weight is to drive concrete piles all the way through the sponge and anchor them into the hard rock underneath. Millennium Tower's foundation used what engineers call friction piles, cylinders of concrete that grip the surrounding soil through friction rather than resting on bedrock. Think of it as two hands pressed together to hold a glass versus setting the glass on a table. The hands can hold, but only as long as the material between them stays firm. The concrete friction piles at Millennium Tower were driven 60 to 90 feet deep into dense Colma sand, nowhere near the bedrock 200 feet down. The Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority's own consultants had data showing that, by 2010, the building had already settled 10 inches, nearly double the 5-inch maximum the geotechnical engineer had predicted for the entire 20-year life of the structure. The soil was compressing exactly as physics said it would under $600 million worth of concrete and glass. The friction piles are doing their part. Everything built on top of them has been paying the price ever since. The cascade of failures did not begin with a single dramatic event. In 2015, developers disclosed to city authorities that the building was sinking and tilting. The public was not told until May 2016. By then, the tower had already sunk 16 inches and was showing a 2-inch tilt at the base and roughly 6 inches at the roofline. The city of San Francisco filed suit in November 2016, alleging that the developer had withheld information on the sinking from potential buyers. In March 2017, the Homeowners Association filed its own suit against Millennium Partners, Webcor, Handel Architects, Treadwell and Rollo, DeSimone Consulting Engineers, and the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority, seeking $200 million for repairs. The legal dispute involved at least 9 separate lawsuits, 146 attorneys, and total recoveries sought against the TJPA alone exceeding $1 billion. By 2018, the tilt at the roof had reached 14 inches, and the sink had deepened to 18 inches. In September of that year, residents began reporting loud creaking sounds throughout the building. An owner on the 36th floor found a cracked window. The city threatened to yellow tag the building as potentially dangerous. The litigation settled in October 2020 with the announcement of a $120 million engineering upgrade, 52 piles drilled to bedrock. That plan was later scaled back to 18 piles. The fix was declared complete in June 2023. The model predicted up to 4 inches of tilt correction within 6 months. By February 2024, only 1 inch had been recovered, a quarter of what was forecast. And engineers had discovered a new problem. The building appeared to be sinking slightly in the center instead of the sides, introducing fresh, long-term risks that no model had fully anticipated. In May 2016, NBC Bay Area published the first major public report on the sinking. The story broke with specific measurements and triggered immediate panic among residents and prospective buyers across San Francisco's luxury high-rise market. Within weeks, owners of more than 200 individual units had filed separate legal actions. The building's own Homeowners Association, represented by attorney Dan Petroselli of O'Melveny and Myers, described the situation as a structural crisis that demanded a single unified legal strategy to secure all the money needed for a permanent repair. The first published engineering assessment confirmed the building had already exceeded every settling benchmark set at construction. Resale inquiries collapsed. The first buyers who could exit their positions without catastrophic loss began moving to do so immediately. Joe Montana, the Hall of Fame quarterback, was among the most high-profile residents documented in the litigation, and his ownership of a unit at Millennium Tower was cited in Jones Day's public case summary as emblematic of the building's celebrity clientele. Tom Perkins, the late venture capitalist, also held a unit in the building. The scale of individual loss is documented in the resale market. A penthouse unit that sold for $13 million in December 2016 resold for $9 million in recent years, a loss of $4 million on a single transaction. One fifth-floor unit sold at a 52% loss against its original purchase price. Across the building, the average resale loss in 2024 exceeded 20%, even after the structural retrofit was declared successful. Resident Mehrdad Mostafavi, who lived on the third floor, returned home in June 2023 to find his kitchen sink overflowing with brown sewage. Tests confirmed black water contamination. He and his wife, Jen Nielsen, were forced to vacate their unit entirely after inspectors found black mold. Mostafavi subsequently filed a $7 million lawsuit against the Millennium Tower Homeowner Association for negligent maintenance of the plumbing system. The people who had the resources to leave when the news broke in 2016 are long gone. Maybe the engineers defending the retrofit are right. Maybe the 18 bedrock piles drilled 275 feet into the earth represent the turning point, and the remaining lean will resolve itself slowly over the coming years, the way early steel-frame skyscrapers in Chicago settled into their footings after engineers corrected the foundational mistakes of the 1890s. Aviation's first commercial jets cracked fuselages at altitude before manufacturers understood metal fatigue. First-generation nuclear plants leaked before containment protocols matured. Every technology has its catastrophic first iteration before the standards harden. Or maybe the lesson here is darker than that. Maybe a building that was sinking before it was finished, in a city sitting on compressible bay mud, in a seismic zone that will shake this ground again, cannot be fully corrected by any number of piles at any depth, because the decision not to anchor it properly was made 30 years before the first crack appeared in the basement wall. Tonight on Mission Street, the lights are on in most of the 419 units. The blue-gray glass still reflects the bay. The tilt instruments are still logging. And somewhere below the foundation, 200 feet of soft bay mud is doing quietly, patiently, exactly what soft bay mud has always done.